Hello Internet, welcome to a special episode of Romney's Reviews. As you can see by, well, the lighting around me, I'm not in my normal location where I shoot these things. It's, let's see, it's about 3:30 in the morning. I just got out of the midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises, and I'm also not alone. You can go ahead and pan to the others. That person is Cherie Aiden, good friend of mine. We're also joined by Tyler Bowers and by Robin Noble.
Hi.
Now, I actually got to see this movie twice, so for the segment explaining my initial impressions, I'm gonna hand it over to the Romney of the past. Hello Internet, this is Romney from the past. I just got out of the 6:40 screening here at the Megaplex 17 at Jordan Commons, thanks to the tickets that I won through Facebook, courtesy of America First Credit Union. Now, I'm recording the initial opinions that I got from this film during this first screening so that I don't have to recall them later when I'm editing this. Now I'm sitting down, mostly because I can't keep pacing the same spot over and over again while holding a camera. I mean, I already look weird talking to it. And it's very handheld, as you can probably see by my shaky hands, so I'll try to keep this quick. I'm gonna essentially read off the notes that I've taken as I was sitting in the theater as the end credits were rolling, because thankfully Megaplex 17 actually brings up the lights during the end credits instead of me having to wait till the end of the end credits to actually write down my notes. Now, most of this is about the story because the story is what kept me hooked during this initial viewing of The Dark Knight Rises. Basically, it keeps you guessing, and it also really brings things full circle. It even just uses clips and things that were introduced in the previous two movies and kind of brings them into this third film as if they had been planned from the get-go, which I know wasn't entirely the case. But it brings it full circle, it ties up all the loose ends it can, while still leaving room for a sequel. Which, again, it's a franchise, it's a multi-million-dollar making franchise. Why wouldn't they leave room for a sequel? I'm just saying. First thing I have to say is that compared to most other films that I've seen this year, and based on my recollection of the previous two Nolan Batman films, this one is a little more fast-paced than usual when it comes to its character development and the way that it's edited. There were times where the editing actually made it feel almost like you were watching a feature-length trailer. Mostly with just the way that audio would be laid over certain video clips, and just the way that it would cut together. Not as bad as, say, Transformers 3. Nolan actually takes the whole trailer feeling but actually makes it work. But it was still something I wasn't entirely used to. But it did, given how much they had to get through in 2.5 hours, it does make sense. So on a whole, this is an awesome film. You can tell that everybody involved really gave it their all. You can tell that Christopher Nolan really put a lot of work into this to fully bring a nice conclusion to his take on Batman. Those are just my thoughts coming out of this first screening, so yeah, I'm gonna turn the time back over to Romney of the present, even though we're both Romneys of the past by the time you're watching this, but you get the point. Thanks, Romney of the past. Now we're gonna turn the time over to our three lovely guests here.
Okay, there's a few things for me that I thought were like really cool. Now, I don't think that the screenplay was amazing, obviously, but there were some funny quibs between the characters that felt so much like the comic, and I loved it. Like I loved like how yeah, maybe the writing wasn't great, but I could still feel these characters and like really like, oh, F yeah, like I still felt super connected to everyone that I had met within the last however many years that I've met in the first movie, you know, so it felt really good and I loved it.
Yeah, going back to what she mentioned about the comic, and the characters kind of interacting, it was kind of fun to see that transition on the big screen. And the relationship between Bane and Batman was just, I thought, couldn't have been better.
The beginning was a little bit slow. Well, not necessarily the very, very beginning, but more towards the beginning, middle. And then there's the middle, and then there's the end. But like the beginning, middle, kind of was like...
You thought it was slow?
I thought it was slow.
Say that it was too quick. Like
I thought it was like... It was confusing, like it was like bam, 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 but at the same time it was like, it's so fast that it's slow because you don't realize what's going on for a minute, and you're just like, why are these people doing this?
I completely understand, especially,
but that only lasts for about a half hour.
I feel like
this movie's 3 hours.
Yeah, I feel like the problem with the beginning was that they expected first off people to watch former movies, which they should expect that because it's Christopher Nolan and you should have watched everything 80 times. But I kind of felt like the pacing was kind of this awkward kind of quick there were some things, and I'm not very good at judging these kinds of things, but in my personal opinion, I felt like some of the shots came together in kind of an awkward, clunky way. And I know that was just for timing. It wasn't like it was a bad story or whatever, or a build up to the story, because obviously the plot really comes together in the beginning, middle, and throughout the rest of the story. So the beginning is just like, well, fuck, here you go. Like, we're gonna throw everything at you. Now get it. Let's go on, and you're gonna be amazed. So don't shit your pants. Okay?
Yeah, like I thought I was sitting there like, am I an idiot? Like, why can I not follow this?
You see, I was thinking like, why are you doing this? Is the entire movie gonna be this way? Holy shit. Maybe I won't like it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself now. But I was wrong, and I should have trusted the fact that it was
You should have trusted Christopher Nolan. I mean, that's
that's his
style.
I'm sorry, Christopher Nolan. If I ever get to meet you,
how
I'll apologize.
That's how he
easily.
rolls. That's how he does it. So.
As far as cinematography goes, script goes, they weren't exactly like absolutely perfect, but everything else makes up for it. Like the special effects makes up for it. Like the audio. That sounds weird, but like the sheer sound of Bane's voice, for example, is absolutely terrifying. He doesn't need a bunch of like makeup kicked up on his face or anything. Like he just needs that voice, and it's like terrified in a little ball, screaming and crying for my mother.
I had a problem with Bane's voice for the first hour. I was like, what the fuck? Like this is weird. I can't stand this. He's just louder than everyone else.
Amplified.
He was so much louder than everyone else. And I completely understand why he needed to be, because they couldn't understand him, and they had to do voiceovers and all this stuff. But it just felt like it was kind of it was just kind of it didn't click with everyone else, and so I felt like he was like to the side of your ears, or just way louder than everyone.
True. And for the record, that may be on part of the theater because the sound system was a little bit glitchy.
It was a little bit weird. I heard that. I think Tyler mentioned that too.
Okay, it could have been a little bit better, but as far as like making you afraid,
for trying to make his voice more abrupt than everybody else's, because really, he's got too much to work with, or not enough, whichever way you want to look at it, because Tom Hardy, an exceptional job by the way, but he's got so much covering his face. All he can do with this character is convey the emotion through his eyes and his voice.
He did awesomely.
Amazing again.
Everything else.
So I think that's why they amplified his voice so much, so he can establish.
He's supposed to be
he can get
extremely
more
powerful
emotion,
character.
and he was. Yeah.
And the rest of the sound, I thought the score was amazing. I'm a fan of Hans Zimmer, but at the same time, like I don't really give a fuck about him. Like everyone's like, oh my god, he's the most amazing thing in the world, and I think he's amazing, but he's not my favorite movie composer. But
Very
however,
talented.
This score, out of any other Batman score, like I felt it. Like as they were chanting, like my foot was going with it. Like I felt my heart like going with this score, and it the rise and fall of it was just perfect pacing on the score.
I like how they played with more of like vocal.
Yeah, it like really old school there. It was really cool.
It was really it definitely made it more intense.
Yeah.
Instead of like hearing like violins and all kinds of different instruments, that just the voice.
It wasn't beautiful. It was abrupt. It was kind of scary. It captured you in a different way.
Now here's the things I noticed during my second time through this film, and where'd I put my notepad?
In your pocket. Yeah.
And yes, I take notes. All reporters take notes.
It's
Notepad
weird.
is over here. And basically, the stuff that I noticed the second time through, I mean, with the way the dialogue is written, I noticed that there was a lot of subtle foreshadowing, and without giving anything away, there's also a lot of misdirects and a lot of red herrings that essentially make you think one thing, and then when you find out the truth, you're just like, huh? Except more like you actually just got punched in the face. And some of the other stuff I noticed is that with the way they approached characters like Bane, they essentially took a lot of the key elements of the DC universe and really simplified it. I mean, for example, there's no inclusion of the drug Venom in this film, which I think worked out for the best because that would have taken way too long to explain. And also, like a lot of other characters, they always keep Catwoman's origins fairly secretive. It's only in the comics where you really learn her backstory, as well as that animated short that you can find. I think it's on one of the Batman animated DVDs. I don't know if it was Under the Red Hood or what, but basically
I thought it was in year one.
Year one.
It's on year one.
One of the two. But basically, they simplified a lot of the things that have made the Batman universe in the comics a little harder to get into. In the case of the music, although it is well put together, Hans Zimmer does a great job. I feel that at some points, this may have either been just how Hans Zimmer composed it or just meant something with the editor, but I feel that during the ending, kind of still doing a lot of the stuff and kind of hitting you over the head with it during the ending was a little too much. I mean, given how it all ends, the audience kind of needs a breather. One thing I also liked is, and this isn't necessarily spoiler per se, this more relates to a previous story that this film is based on, a lot of the stuff from Nightfall, they kept a lot of those connections subtle. I mean, although you see some key stuff from Nightfall, they don't shove it in your face saying, hey, this is Nightfall. They just kind of say, look, we acknowledge this happened, but this is just part of a much larger story, which is kind of the point of Nightfall itself, because unlike other villains that are introduced in one-shots, Bane was introduced, but then his plan built up slowly over time. And so that was one thing that I liked. First thing that I've noticed is that Christopher Nolan has had all the shots, even in certain scenes where you may not even notice it, the camera always seems to be in movement. That's another thing I noticed. And it doesn't do the stupid shaky cam thing, which Robin can demonstrate briefly to kind of show how annoying that is, where it just kind of shakes around like this.
Hey, I love that. Hey, in certain settings.
Yeah, I tried doing my job for a while.
It wasn't very commercial in the Hunger Games.
Well, yeah.
Hey.
Point being, with the camera kept in movement, you can tell Nolan actually had, it was like movement with purpose, kind of like a martial artist actually doing techniques. It has purpose, it actually has a point, instead of just saying, oh, it's a dull scene, shake the camera. Like the others have said, it's a good film, it's really dense, and it does kind of rely on you having seen the previous Batman films, so it does look, it somewhat loses a couple points for that, because an example of other trilogies, even if you haven't seen some other films in the trilogies, you can still kind of jump on it and enjoy it. This one, it does kind of require you to do a little bit of homework. And so, on my personal scale, kind of taking an average from both the score that I gave it during my first viewing and the score that I'm giving it now, I'm gonna give Dark Knight Rises a 4 out of 5. Nolanites, do not hurt me, do not flame me. I'm just saying it's a good film. It does have its flaws.
I don't want to rate it the best movie because obviously it's not a 5. I mean, I'm not going to judge it very much. I have my own personal opinions, so I'm not going to judge it.
No, it definitely had its flaws.
Probably for me, 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
I'd have to go with a solid 4.
I would have to say I'm gonna go with 4.5 because after it was over, I just sat there in complete awe of what I just witnessed, and I just I had to wrap my head around it a little bit. It was I just had to think about the characters, and it didn't impact me in an emotional way, but I was just stunned at how amazing it was.
So that's it for this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. Now, I don't know what film is coming out next. It's been kind of a hectic summer, so here's the film that I'm going to be reviewing. It's subject to change. Reason why I didn't review anything last week is because the editor-in-chief kind of put a kibosh on that. So, yeah. I definitely would like to thank my friends for joining in this madness that is Romney's Reviews, and I hope to see you next time.
The Catwoman was a bad cussing mother cusser. You go first.
Obviously Christian Bale would be my top because
you had an advantage.
The problem that I had, yeah, sure, you had an advantage, but Christian Bale's a good actor. I'm not going to deny that. I think his acting's really good. The one thing I didn't like is
the voice. What's like
voice? Bane had a voice, and you were able to understand it, but I swear to God, swear to me.
No, mine is a kind of Western. I guess he's from Texas now.
Yeah.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Get on my horse.
Christian Bale would be my number one. I hate to say this, but I grew up with George Clooney.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to say this. I'm sorry. Batman and Robin was my favorite movie.
George
as a kid.
Clooney
It was
is
one of my favorite
okay.
movies because I was in love with the guy who played Robin, who didn't do.
You could
anything
watch
with his acting,
Batman,
which
and then
sucks
you
so
could
bad.
watch One Fine Day and get your like daily dose of
George Clooney. So, not saying that he's good and or that I enjoy the movies anymore. Actually, I do. And "Kiss by a Rose" is still one of my favorite songs. "Kiss by a Rose." That was the song for Batman and Robin. Look it up.
Oh, and what's his face? The guy. Oh, he plays Mr. Is he Mr. Wong?
I'm gonna say I don't care. I don't give a shit if anyone thinks I'm stupid. Adam West, man. Number 3.
Well,
Number
yeah,
3,
he
Adam
has to be
West.
up there.
All right.
Doesn't have to be up there.
And I think the person you were thinking of, Cherie, was Michael Keaton.
Thank you!
Michael Keaton, man.
See, that's
Oh,
where I
boy.
had to rank him. I had to go Christian Bale, Michael Keaton,
George Clooney.
Val Kilmer.
Is that ascending or descending?
That's descending.
I take it back.
Christian Bale being the best.
Yes.
And then working the way down the list, Michael Keaton being the second best.
all right.
Val Kilmer, George Clooney, I'm sorry, terrible Batman.
Gosh,
awesome
whatever.
Bruce
He
Wayne.
had bat nipples.
He
He had bat nipples.
He was really good Bruce Wayne, but as Batman, he sucked.
He was a
okay?
terrible Bruce Wayne as well.
No,
He was
I
bad.
felt like he got that part down because George Clooney and
I'm going for the cheesy vote, obviously. I'm going to, like, descending from the greatest to, like, these ones are shitty, but they still are, like, part of my life. But if I had to do, like, a serious one, I'd probably agree with Tyler.
That just leaves you.
Okay,
Just agree with
Christian
Tyler.
Bale, Michael Keaton, George Clooney. Thank you.
Okay.
Stephen Romney, what are yours?
And to answer the question, my top 3 Batmans, I actually am placing Christian Bale as number 3 because I'm not a big fan of the lung cancer voice. However, it does have a point in like actually trying to scare the crap out of his enemies. And so Christian Bale is my number 3. Number 2 is Michael Keaton. That's mostly because of nostalgia stuff because the 1980s Batman film was literally the first film I ever watched as a kid. It was actually my first word, according to my mom. And so Michael Keaton's my number 2 because I felt he kind of found a nice balance between the two. But my number 1 best Batman, Kevin Conroy. That's basically the best Batman, in my opinion, is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman for Batman the Animated Series, as well as the other DC animated stuff like Justice League Unlimited, Young Justice, the Arkham games. And so yeah, in my opinion, Kevin Conroy is still the best Batman, but you can't necessarily have a voice actor doing stuff in a live action film unless you want to, say, take live action stuff of an actor and then have Kevin Conroy try to dub over it. But that's my top 3 list is Christian Bale at number 3, Michael Keaton at number 2, Kevin Conroy at number 1.